June 2025. Somewhere over the desert, 470 ballistic missiles have just been launched toward Israel. 1,100 drones are in the air. It is the largest wave of projectiles ever fired against a single country in all of modern history. On the other side, the defense systems light up. The Iron Dome, David's Sling, the Arrow, and for the first time in an actual conflict, American THAAD batteries activated on Israeli soil. What happened in the following 12 days did not merely redraw the Middle East. It revealed something that strategists in Moscow, Beijing, and Washington would prefer you did not know. That a 21st century war can be won and still leave the world more dangerous than before. This is the Shadow War. Iran versus Israel. 40 years of conflict. 12 days of confrontation. A new era. There is a cruel irony at the heart of this conflict, an irony that history prefers to hide. In the 1970s, Israel's greatest strategic ally in the Middle East was not Saudi Arabia. It was not Jordan. It was Iran. It is hard for young people today to believe, but in 1977, Iran's two biggest allies were the United States and Israel. Israel and Iran maintained deep security ties, intelligence cooperation, and military contracts worth billions. The Shah's Iran was modern, ambitious, and deeply aligned with the West. But beneath the surface, another reality was growing. The Shah ruled as a combination of forced modernizer and enlightened despot. His secret police, the Savak, trained with help from the Mossad and the CIA, became a symbol of fear. The Iranian population knew it. The modernity he sold came at a price: torture, repression, and the feeling that the country itself had been sold to foreign powers. Then came 1978. The streets filled with anger, crowds expanded, the old order trembled. In September 1978, during what became known as Black Friday, the Shah's army opened fire on protesters in Tehran. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, were killed. For many who witnessed it, one truth became impossible to ignore. This was now a war between the Shah and his own people, and the Shah was not going to win. Then came February 1st, 1979. After 15 years of exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini landed in Tehran. 2 million people flooded the streets to receive him. The world changed that day, and it would take decades to understand how much. When Israeli personnel fled Iran during the revolution, they passed through crowds of revolutionaries. No one attacked them. No one stopped them. But history had already moved on. Israel's most important ally in the Middle East had just become its most outspoken enemy. On November 4th, 1979, Iranian students stormed the United States Embassy in Tehran. 52 diplomats were taken hostage. They would remain captive for 444 days. For revolutionary Iran, it was an act of liberation. For Washington, it was a civilizational humiliation. For Israel, it was a sign that everything built over the previous decades had collapsed. But the revolution would not stay contained within Iran's borders. Khomeini had a project, not just to govern Iran, to export the revolution, and the next stage would be Lebanon. In June 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. The stated goal was to destroy Yasser Arafat's PLO, which was using southern Lebanon as a base for attacks. Defense Minister Ariel Sharon conducted the operation with brutality and ambition. But by pushing into northern Lebanon, Israel committed a strategic mistake that would take decades to fully understand. It created a vacuum in the Bekaa Valley that Iran immediately filled. There, in that fertile valley between mountains, one of the most sophisticated non-state military organizations in history was born. Hezbollah, the Party of God. Iran sent Revolutionary Guards to train Lebanese fighters. It provided weapons, money, and doctrine. But Iran and Hezbollah needed more than conventional weapons. They needed a psychological weapon capable of changing the rules of the game. On November 11, 1982, an 18-year-old named Ahmad Qasir drove a car bomb into the Israeli military headquarters in Tyre. The building collapsed. 76 soldiers were killed. It was the first time a suicide attack was used as a systematic military tactic in the modern Middle East. A year later, in October 1983, truck bombs exploded nearly simultaneously at the barracks of American Marines and French paratroopers in Beirut. 241 Americans were killed. 58 French soldiers were killed. The multinational force withdrew from Lebanon within months. The message had been sent. The cost of staying in the Middle East could be made unbearable. With the end of the Cold War and the Gulf War of 1991, the world attempted to reorder the Middle East. The Madrid Conference brought together Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, Lebanese, and Syrians. Iran was not invited. For Tehran, this was not a diplomatic oversight. It was a declaration of war. Iran responded by building its own regional order. It financed and armed any group willing to resist Israel and the United States, regardless of whether they were Sunni or Shia. What would become known as the Axis of Resistance emerged, a network of proxies stretching from Yemen to Lebanon, from Syria to Iraq. In 1992, Israel's new Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, made a decision that few understood at the time. He wanted peace with the Palestinians, not out of love for Arafat, but because he understood that the real threat came from much farther away. He saw the Oslo Accords as a strategic maneuver. Calm the Palestinian front in order to focus attention on Iran's nuclear program, which Israeli intelligence was beginning to detect. If Israel made peace with moderate Arab states, Iran could be isolated. Tehran understood the move and responded by financing Hamas and Islamic Jihad attacks designed to destroy Oslo from within. Rabin was assassinated in November 1995. The peace process collapsed, and the Iranian nuclear program continued advancing in the shadows. After September 11th, there was a rare moment of possibility. Iran and the United States briefly cooperated against the Taliban in Afghanistan. There were rumors of a grand bargain, a comprehensive understanding that might normalize relations between Washington and Tehran. In 2003, Iran submitted a formal proposal. The Bush administration ignored it. Weeks later, President George W. Bush included Iran in the axis of evil, alongside Iraq and North Korea. The window closed, and Iran decided that the only guarantee of survival was deterrence through force. For 2 decades, while the world debated sanctions and negotiations, Iran was quietly building the largest and most diversified missile arsenal in the Middle East. It was not a collection of weapons for military parades. It was a meticulous strategic project. The Fateh 110 and Zolfahar missiles covered targets within a range of 200 to 700 kilometers. The Sejil and Khorramshahr reached 2,000 kilometers, enough to strike not only Israel, but parts of Eastern Europe. The hypersonic Fateh missile, tested in 2023, promised speeds that would make interception far more difficult. But what worried analysts most was not the range, it was the evolution. In the last decade, Iran shifted its focus from quantity to precision. Having 10,000 missiles that miss their target by 1 kilometer is very different from having 2,000 that hit a specific building. And Iran was clearly moving toward the second model. In September 2019, drones and cruise missiles struck Saudi Aramco oil facilities. In a single night, 5 to 7% of global oil production was disrupted. The world was stunned. Those weapons had flown hundreds of kilometers below radar and struck their targets with precision. In January 2020, after the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani by an American drone in Baghdad, Iran attacked the Al-Assad air base in Iraq with ballistic missiles. More than 100 American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries. The base was struck with remarkable accuracy. And there was a second arm of this arsenal, cheaper, more versatile, and in many ways more disturbing. The Shahed 136 drone costs roughly $20,000. A Patriot missile used to intercept it can cost $3 to $4 million. Iran had discovered a devastatingly economical weapon, not only to destroy, but to financially bleed the enemy's defense systems. And it exported that technology to the Houthis in Yemen, to militias in Iraq, and to Russia in Ukraine. The strategy was elegant in its cruelty. I do not need to win. I only need you to spend more defending against me than I spend attacking you.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. New videos every week. Crython Media.